Welcome to Greek for a Week. I'm glad that you have decided to view this week's video, and this week we are looking at a new paragraph. We are looking at the paragraph chapter 2, verses 19 through 24. Again, we are still in the book of Philippians. This week we are tackling three verses, 19 through 21, 19, 20, and 21. I kind of felt like these verses really needed to stay together, mostly because of the subordinating conjunction gar, which would kind of help tie these three verses together. You also have a de right here, which I'll talk about here in just a minute. But as we typically do, let's translate and then we'll move forward. Now, I am hoping by the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to you soon, so that I also may be encouraged when I know that which concerns you. For I have no one like-minded who will genuinely care about that which concerns you. For all seek their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ. Okay, let's look at a couple of things. If you remember, I circled the de here, so this conjunction here that begins verse 19, again, likely signaling a new development in the discourse. Again, we're adding a new character. The new character is Timothy. We'll also look at Epaphroditus here later in the next paragraph. But you have Timothy here, and you also have, remember, in verses 18 and I think 16 and 17, I can't remember exactly, but there were some imperatives. Well, now we're getting back to the indicative mood, all right, specifically here, the el pizzo. So as we make those shifts, how does the author help us note those shifts? He'll use the conjunction de. So el pizzo, as I pointed out earlier, first person, present active indicative. Of course, it's already in its lexical form. Then you have the en curio Jesu, this prepositional phrase right here. I'm going to suggest here that the en is a probably by the means of, indicating instrument. So it's the instrument by which he is hoping, and that is to send Timothy. Then you have the pempsai. This verb here is actually, it's an infinitive. It's an aorist active infinitive of pempo, and it's a complementary infinitive. Basically what that means is it complements, or you could say it completes, the thoughts of the main verb. So when Paul says, I am hoping, you kind of are saying, okay, what are you hoping for? And he says here, I'm hoping to send. So I'm completing the thought of the main verb. Of course, we have a hina here. The hina is introduces a purpose clause. I'm hoping to do that. Why? So that I am encouraged. Then you have, lastly, you have the nos here, gnos, or I should say gnus. Aorist active participle, masculine nominative singular of gnosko, and I translated it when I know. So I'm indicating there that you have a temporal participle here. Then again, we get down to verse 20 and 21. We have a gar here. We have a gar here. Both of those gars I'm suggesting are more explanatory as opposed to reason. So he's further explaining his thought process. Firstly, he mentions what? That there's no one like-minded. In a sense, he's saying no one that he knows of that's like-minded like Timothy, who will do what? He will care for you genuinely. Okay? And so as he does that, Paul wants us to understand that through the use of gar in verse 20 and 21. You have a perihumon, okay, perihumon, all right, and that's probably with reference to or those things concerning you. So he says here, for I have no one like-minded who will genuinely care about those things which are of reference to you. And you get that both here, and you also get it down here where they're concerned, where they're seeking here the interest really of themselves, not the interest of Christ, and where the interest of Christ, namely, at least in this context, it's he's referencing the Philippians here and how Timothy is going to, if you will, care for you where the others will not. Again, the gar in verse 21, same explanatory as verse 20. Then you have the zetusin. All right, so you have a verb here. This verb here is zeteo, third person plural, present active indicative of zeteo. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about the Jesu Christou. All right, Jesu Christou, likely a genitive of source. And that is the genitive of source here, pointing back to the ta. So it's they seek their own interests, not those interests specifically of Jesus Christ, which is, you could say, those things that are sourced in Jesus Christ. Again, trust this has been helpful. That was verses 19 through 21. And likely I'll do 22 through 24 next week. Then we'll be able to diagram already. So again, have a great week.